Ever heard of a 19th century saint from a small village in India whose ideas are still shaping communities, schools, and even the media all over the world? Well, today we're diving into the incredible story of Saint Kuriakose's Elias Chavara, a man whose impact you'll see truly spans centuries. And this quote? This is where it all starts. For Saint Chavara, this wasn't just some nice-sounding phrase. It was his operating system. Seriously, it was the core philosophy that fueled every single thing we're about to talk about, turning a personal belief into a public blueprint for changing the world.
So let's set the scene a little. We're in Kerala, India, back in the 1800s. And this is where we meet Saint Chavara. But here's the thing, he wasn't just a priest. The man was a true social reformer, an educator, and a media pioneer. He was someone who looked at the world, saw what it could be, and decided to start building that future right then and there.
Okay, so in this first part, we're going to connect the dots. We're going to see exactly how his core belief that every single day has to include doing good for other people wasn't just some internal spiritual idea. Nope, it was the direct cause of real, tangible, world-changing actions. You know, he eventually earned the title Apostle of Charity, and that name really tells you everything. For him, faith wasn't something you just kept to yourself. It had to be active, it had to be practical, and it had to be out in the world making things better. It's this mix of deep prayer and hands-on public service that made him a key figure in what's known as the Kerala Renaissance. So this philosophy of action, it led him to become a kind of social architect. See, he didn't just help individuals here and there. He built the actual institutions that would go on to empower entire communities for generations. His strategy was brilliant, really. He co-founded two major religious orders. For men, he helped start the CMI, which focused on education and social reform. But then, for women, he co-founded the CMC. And let me tell you, this was absolutely revolutionary. At a time and in a place where women's roles were incredibly limited, he understood that for a society to truly advance, women needed to be empowered. So the CMC was specifically dedicated to educating girls and caring for the most vulnerable. And here is the real game changer. This wasn't just a friendly suggestion. He made it a rule, a policy. Every single parish had to have a school. Just think about that for a second. In the 19th century, in a society with really rigid social structures, he was essentially mandating universal education. He was creating a system to make learning available to everyone, no matter their background or gender. So what was the result? What did that one vision lead to? Well, today, those two congregations he started are serving in over 30 countries, across 5 continents. In North America alone, there are over 100 CMI priests continuing that mission. It all started with one man's mandate in a small part of India and grew into this global network of service. It's pretty amazing. But his work didn't stop with schools and social services. Not even close. Now we get to see a completely different side of Saint Chavara, the media innovator. And this story, you're going to love this, it involves some incredible ingenuity and a plantain stock. Okay, this part of the story is just incredible. He knew they needed a local printing press for books and educational materials, but they didn't really have the resources. So what did he do? He got creative. He literally carved a model of a printing press out of a plantain stalk just to figure out how to build one himself. And based on that simple model, he established St. Joseph's Press all the way back in 1846. And the legacy of that plantain stock model? That press he built eventually launched a newspaper called Deepika. And get this, it is the oldest daily newspaper in its language that is still being printed today. One act of resourcefulness is still informing thousands of people almost 200 years later.
All right, for our final section, let's look beyond the institutions he built and dive into the intellectual and spiritual legacy he left behind through his own words and his wisdom.
Because on top of everything else, the man was a prolific writer and poet. He wrote Atmanutapam, which is this deep, personal epic poem, and The Testament of a Loving Father, which is still used today as a practical guide for family life. He even wrote 10 liturgical dramas, which actually earned him the title the father of Malayalam drama. I mean, the sheer breadth of his talent is just astounding. And on his deathbed, his final words really capture the focus and purpose of his entire life. He said, "I have never lost the baptismal grace I received at the font." It just speaks to a life lived with this incredible, unwavering consistency, right from his very first principles to his final moments. Which brings us to our final question, really. The story of Saint Chavara is just this powerful testament to how one person, guided by a simple, actionable philosophy to do good for others every single day, can create a legacy that doesn't just endure, but actually grows and thrives for centuries to come.